So I thought that it would be fun to welcome my friends from the show Fiddler on the Roof. We did the production on Broadway in 2015. And it was a very special show for me. Many of these people became very dear friends of mine. And it's part of what we all think we all miss about Broadway is that feeling of family and connection and seeing the same people every night. And I know when we all joined together tonight right before 8 o'clock, there was a lot of whooping and hollering, just seeing each other's faces, because we were together during the last election, which was, we didn't realize until tonight that we spent that night at the show. So firstly, I would love to invite my dear friend, Adam Grupper. Adam, please meet Danny. Danny is our wonderful cantor at Congregation Kol Ami here in White Plains.
Yeah, it's so great to meet you. It was such a beautiful Havdalah service. I used to be Shomer Shabbos, and I used to, regularly go to Havdalah services. So it was so meaningful to me to hear that service again. And
thank you.
So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Great to have you. Great to have everyone.
Well, Adam, Adam is a veteran. I looked you up, Adam. 12 Broadway shows. Count them, 12 since 1987 when you were in the original production of Into the Woods.
Yes, that was my Broadway debut.
That's quite the career, sir. And you show up on my TV all the time. You were just talking about how you were filming Homeland during the last election, and you weren't at the show that night because you were busy off filming with Claire Danes and being even fancier than being on Broadway, if that's possible.
We were all following the election returns and just kind of amazed at what we were seeing. It was amazing, and in all the ways you can imagine.
Somewhat astonishing.
Astonishing, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Dumbfounded, I think was the word we were.
So, and you and I just did My Fair Lady on the Broadway also. Yeah, so we've now spent 2.5 years of our lives together every night.
Exactly. When are we going to get hitched?
It's lovely when you throw up at a show and you see another friendly face from. It's what makes Broadway family feel like family, because a lot of us have to follow each other around. And
I'm so glad you asked me to. I'm so glad you asked me to do this because as you said, this we when we did Fiddler, when we did this show that we're spotlighting tonight, we were going through that last election, and we were comparing notes, before we actually joined this conversation, talking about what it was like, and it was such an astonishing that following day, that Wednesday was a 2-show day, and it was a very there was a pallor over the backstage feeling, and part of it was that our director Bart Shear had fashioned his version of Fiddler again using what was in the news, and at that point the refugee crisis was raging, the Syrian refugee crisis, and he used Fiddler as a way to spotlight the way that history rhymes, and the way that the Jews of Anatevka being expelled and becoming refugees was a way of reflecting on our current events. And so it was particularly meaningful for all of us, particularly affecting for all of us, that first election, and seeing an administration that had a very different feeling about immigration and refugees than the previous one. And I remember, my friend Jeffrey Schecter is here, Shecky. He played my son Mendel, and there was a pivotal moment in the second act when the constable reveals that we all are expelled from Anatevka, and Shecky as Mendel had to say, Rabbi, we've been waiting for the Messiah all of our lives. Wouldn't now be a good time for him to come? And the response is, we'll have to wait for him someplace else. And meanwhile, let's start packing. And knowing that line was coming, I had to actually say it several times before I came to the theater, so I would not burst out crying when I said it. So it's to come here 4 years later, at this juncture is, for me, I can't speak for obviously everybody here, but for me personally, as an American and as a Jew, it's such a joyful experience to come here today and to reflect back on where we all were as a country 4 years ago and where we are today. So thank you for having me here.
Oh, well, you were the rabbi. You were the first rabbi I ever became friends with.
Oh, that's really, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It's funny because playing the rabbi of Anatevka was an amazing experience because people really came to me and asked me all kinds of questions. and and I would, yes, and I would actually think about it. And, I as I said to Danny, I used to be Shomer Shabbos. I used to be, fairly religious or observant. And so I actually did know a lot. What I didn't know, I asked my rabbinical source, which is my brother, who knows just about everything. But it was very interesting how, this often happens in shows where the character kind of rubs off on you and everybody around you. So I suddenly had this authority and this sage-like quality that people ascribed to me that I think was totally undeserved. But and my kids probably thought I was insufferable. My wife certainly did. But yeah, it was incredible to be the rabbi.
So,
and of course, I also understudied Danny Burstein as.
I want to hear that story because I know you went on fast. But we talked a little bit before when I first called you about how you first came to know Fiddler and your preconceived notions about what the show was going to be.
Yeah. So, I mean, like a lot of, Jews growing up in the suburbs when I was a kid, I would listen endlessly to the cast album. It was one of the few show albums that we had. It was West Side Story, My Fair Lady, and Fiddler on the Roof were the three in heavy rotation in my house. And so I would listen to that, having not seen the show, would listen to that record over and over again. And, of course, there was enormous pride in having a show built around Jews and Judaism and the shtetl experience. And I didn't see the movie until much later. I had a very, I'll talk about it in a moment, I had a very ambivalent feeling about the movie. But what was interesting is that, it was, for me, growing up with the album, like a lot of people, I think it had a deep impact on me. It also, I came to associate it with my childhood. And so it was hard to grow up into it. And so, as much as I cried tears, when I heard, Far From the Home I Love, and, it's very moving, it also felt sentimental, like sloppy sentimental. So I grew up with a sense of, there was a feeling of, this show is a little too kitschy, and as I grew up, it seemed to be something of my childhood and not something I could grow into. It was something that I kind of left behind as I moved into quote unquote serious theater. And Fiddler on the Roof seemed to be a throwback to an era when theater was not realistic or was not substantive. And so I had a very ambivalent, feeling about the show and about the part of Tevye. I eventually saw the movie. I'm in a minority. I don't like Topol's performance. I think it's full of mannerisms and full of, and that was kind of the way that I thought of Tevye, as kind of a parody of a character. I saw Tevye as kind of, I said this to you, Mairi, and you didn't know the reference, but I saw him as the Stephen Fetchit of the Jewish world. A sort of a stereotype of what it meant to be a Jew, as opposed to an actual Jewish person who lived in that time. And yet, because I knew I was a Jewish character actor and did a lot of musicals, there was kind of an inevitability about, eventually I knew I would have to play the part. So, I mean, I was thrilled to be cast. And at the same time, I had a kind of a queasy feeling about having to step into those shoes. Which changed, very, very, completely changed when I finally actually did go on for that part.
Well, it was a different production that we did. There was a lot of reimagining going on. Bart Scher, we talked about how he reimagined the ending of the show.
Right.
Some that new dance music. There was new choreography. Every production until that point had Jerome Robbins choreography.
Right.
And so I wonder if that allowed you to have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of, rather than slotting into the same fiddler that everyone else had done.
I think all of that, Hova Schechter's choreography that was, he used to call, it's very funny, he used to call it Jerome Robbins 2.0. Yeah. And yeah, there was new dance music. There was more than that, was that Bart Scher always comes to musicals. I think he's an ideal director for musicals, because he understands the heritage of musicals, but he's not slavish to it. And he thinks of musicals as plays with music. And he has an instinctive aversion to anything that is obviously musical. He hates it. Like you can see he's got this visceral disgust for anything that's overtly like jazz handsy kind of, and he tries to go in the opposite direction. So he wanted to go back to the roots of Fiddler on the Roof. He went back to the Shalom Aleichem stories. He went back to the Roman Vishniac portraits of a vanished world, of what Jews and shtetls look like. He went back to a really moving movie that was made in the 30s, a German film of Tevye and his daughters that was very affecting. And he also, he pulled every bit of kitsch and sentimentality out of it and made the stakes enormously high, so that we understood that, for example, the consequences of marrying a non-Jewish person in this world were so dire that you could not possibly imagine doing it. And he made that real for all of us. The stakes and the sense of how fragile existence could be. And also, all the familiar tones of it, the clash of modernity with traditionalism, the family dramas, but all of it he kept very real, and he kept it very, it was about the acting and not about the, serving the jazz hands. And I really appreciated that.
Danny, I want to make sure that I know you have some questions you'd love to ask as well.
Yeah, I mean, I want to let you guys just go at it. This is so amazing to hear. This is so fascinating. But I do want to ask, Adam, you touched a little bit on your own Jewish experience, that at one point you were Shomer Shabbos. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your own personal Jewish identity and whether the fiddler experience had an impact on it and what that might have been.
I grew up in Rockland County. I was a member of the New City Jewish Center, where my parents were founding members. It was a conservative synagogue. My oldest brother, David, who was 7 years older than me, was part of a Jewish youth group, and he and his friends had their own alternative services and their own alternative niguns and songs. And I, as a kid, I looked up to my brother and I joined him, and I became part of that world. We walked to synagogue. I became Shomer Shabbos, and we all did. And I was, our family was kosher anyway, but I became more strictly kosher. And what was interesting was that my brother then went off to college, and then I was home as my brother went off when I was 10 years old when my brother went off to college, and suddenly my experience as a Jew, as an observant Jew in a conservative synagogue, was to be alone, because I didn't have the support of my brothers and all his friends. And so for years, I kept that flame burning, and I found my own pathway as an observant Jew in a very, standard, classic, suburban, conservative community. And when I got to college, I let a lot of it go. I thought there were opportunities I wanted to explore that were beyond. But those years where I was Shomer Shabbos were extraordinarily moving for me. Especially to have a day of the week that was just relegated to walks and thinking and reading. The only thing that I allowed myself to do was play guitar, because I felt that was part of my experience, and music was an important part of my enjoyment of the Sabbath. But it was a very interesting, very, very solitary kind of contemplative kind of experience. It was not a collective, it was not a shared, it was not a communal experience for most of my formative years, which was very interesting. So at those times where I can, reach out, I find, it's very moving to me. And a show like Fiddler is so universal, and it's so, everybody has a very proprietary feeling about Fiddler on the Roof. It's part of everybody's DNA if you're an American Jew. So it's the one thing that we all kind of share in common across all denominations of Judaism.
Amazing.
Very quickly, because I know we're going to end up chatting all night long. Tell us very quickly what happened when you got the call, because you were playing the rabbi on Broadway, and all of a sudden one night I showed up to work and Adam was going on for Tevye, and we were in previews. Yeah, so I don't think you'd had a put in. I don't think you'd.
No, much of I didn't have a single rehearsal.
And before you finish the story, it was the most flawlessly beautiful, conceived version. Like Al, I can see Al in the short video. Her thumbs are way up. She'll tell us when she gets there. It was such a beautifully perfect, poised, flawless performance, and you did it like that. So what happened there?
Well, so you didn't see, it's like a duck on the water. You don't see the feet frantically moving underneath the water. You just see calm, on the top. But when we were
Danny got sick when What happened?
So this was almost 5 years ago. So it was December, the end of December. It was holiday time. I remember we were in our 10 out of 12s, which means that was a period where we were doing all of our tech rehearsal. And there was a calm moment, and Danny and I were on stage hanging out, waiting for a lighting cue. And he just, we were talking about our upcoming holiday schedule. And if you don't know this, if you're not in the world of Broadway, producers cram like a gazillion shows in the shortest period of time, because holidays are when everybody wants to go to the theater, so they try and maximize the time. So Danny was talking about that schedule, which was something like 15 shows in a row. And he just kind of laughed and shook his head and said, I have no idea how I'm going to get through that. And I instantly took that as like a DEFCON 1, like I better get up to speed. There's actually a cautionary story of Paul Libben, who was Zero Mostel's understudy, had to go on when he only knew a third of the first act.
Yeah.
And eventually he went on to play the part 1,000 times, but that first time he had to like slog through that, and I just didn't want that to do that. So I learned all the lines. I did all the staging in my basement. I talked to Danny's dresser. I just would watch the monitor whenever I could. And I basically acted out the entire show in my basement. And so when I came off stage Saturday night, our stage manager, Bess Glorioso, like motioned to me, and she did this gesture pointing to Danny. And she said, wait for my call tomorrow. And I got on the subway ride home, I rehearsed in my mind Act 1 and went to bed. And when I woke up in the morning, I rehearsed in my mind Act 2. And I remember I was doing laundry and I got the call, you're on this afternoon. Wow. And, it was the most extraordinary experience of certainly my professional life, but one of the highlights of my private life. It was the most extraordinary experience because I felt so calm and centered, and I knew that everybody would back me up. And it felt in a lot of ways like the culmination of the work that I had done in my career and my Jewish identity and my identity as an actor. And it really was, and I had not had a single rehearsal. Nobody knew what they were going to see. So I didn't have an understudy rehearsal. I didn't have a put-in rehearsal. So it was literally like, what the hell is going to come out of this person? And so that I did, even that I got through the lines, I knew would be enough. So whatever I did on top of that was gravy. But I remember thinking, just connect with everybody on stage. Just everybody is your Tevye. Everywhere you go will be the right place to go. If you make a mistake in blocking, everybody will work around you. Everybody wants you to succeed. Everybody will help you. And everybody did. Everybody helped me. And it was...
Well, in the pit, I just remember thinking, wait, this is so flawless. This is so calm, because there's that moment when a Broadway show when somebody gets thrown in at the last minute and you're just ready to like cut 5 bars or flip to the next song, or you just don't know what's going to happen. And it was just the smoothest sailing.
Well, that's the greatest, because as an understudy, that's what you want. You want everybody around you to go, okay, he's got it, or she's got it. She's fine. We don't have to worry. You just want everybody to feel like it's okay, I'm here. And if you can do that, it's like it's the greatest compliment you can give an understudy.
You didn't just fill the spot. You actually brought, and you got to go on and do it again. It was just beautiful. Okay, we have to wrap things up because we have a whole so many other guests. But are you going to sing a little something for us?
I would love to. Let me just make sure that I'm.
You get yourself all set up. I want to thank my very, very dear friend Ben Rauhala, who is he's now the pianist for the Broadway Princess Party, and he was one of the rehearsal pianists for the show, and it was his first Broadway show when he played Fiddler. He was so thrilled, and I called him and I asked him if he would help us out tonight. So he has recorded. What are you going to sing for us?
So I'm going to sing "If I Were a Rich Man," which is an odd thing to do without, in this context, in the Zoom context. So.
Thank you, Adam.
I've enjoyed. Okay. Dear God, you made many, many poor people. I realize, of course, it's no shame to be poor, but it's no great honor either. So, what would have been so terrible if I had a small fortune? If I were a rich man, all day long I'd really want. If I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard. If I were a bitty rich, I'd build a big tall house with rooms by the dozen right in the middle of the town. A fine tin roof and real wooden floors below. There would be one long staircase just going up and one even longer coming down. And one more leading nowhere just for show. I'd fill my yard with chicks and turkeys and geese and ducks for the town to see and hear, squawking just as noisily as they can. And each lark would land like a trumpet on the ear, as if to say, here lives a wealthy man. If I were a rich man, all day long I'd bitty bum. If I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard. If I were a bitty rich, I see my wife, my Golda, looking like a rich man's wife with a proper double chin, supervising meals to her heart's delight. I see her putting on airs and strutting like a peacock. Boy, what a happy mood she's in, screaming at the servants day and night. The most important men in town would come to fawn on me. They would ask me to advise them, like a Solomon the Wise. If you please, pardon me, Reptarian, posing problems that would cross a rabbi's eyes. And it won't make one bit of difference if I answer right or wrong. When you're rich, they think you really know. If I were rich, I'd have the time that I lack to sit in the synagogue and pray, and maybe have a seat by the eastern wall. And I'd discuss the holy books with the learned men 7 hours every day. That would be the sweetest thing of all. If I were a rich man, all day long I'd bitty bum. If I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard. Lord, who made the lion and the lamb, you decreed I should be what I am. Would it spoil some vast eternal plan if I were a wealthy man?
Applause.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Let me put us back on again. I hope that I get to see you again in person. Maybe have another, Broadway show again soon.
From your mouth to God's ear.
All right, honey. Bye. Thank you. Bye. So what I would love to do is just play a video that Ted Sperling sent, which was very kind of him. He was our music director, and he made this video talking about his experience being the music director for this production.
Hi, I'm Ted Sperling, and I had the great privilege and pleasure of conducting the most recent revival of Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway. Fiddler has had a huge part in my life since a very early age. It was one of the few show albums we owned as a family, and we wore out the record. It was an LP, of course. My sister and I would sing in the car on long car rides. Our specialty was Do You Love Me? And I think because Goldie has to sing that strange interval, do I what? That was my part. I always sang Goldie and my sister sang Tevye. Then just a short time after that, I played Perchik in a camp production in New Rochelle, New York. I think the Broadway show either was still running or had just closed at that time. Then in high school, I played the role of the fiddler and also played organ and other instruments in the pit, running back and forth, sitting on a high ladder, sort of precariously with my grandfather's violin in my hands. So it's been a big influence on me. I've loved the music, ever since I was a little kid. So the thrill of conducting opening night on Broadway and those big chords at the beginning of tradition, the boom, chick, I really almost burst into tears. I was so happy. And I thank, Bart Shear and Sheldon Harnick for entrusting me with the score. For our production, we tried to stay pretty faithful to the original sound of the Broadway production, but we built on work that Larry Hockman had done for the previous revival in enhancing some solo opportunities in our orchestra, especially to bring out the klezmer flavor of the music. We were blessed to have a wonderful concert mistress, Kelly Hall Tompkins, who was playing the music for the onstage fiddler, who was a dancer. And Kelly took it very seriously that she wanted to bring something special to this production. So I found ways to write more solos for her, especially as transitional music from scene to scene, and really show off her skills and her beautiful, soulful playing. And similarly, we had Andrew Sturman on clarinet, who is a real klezmer expert and brought a real authenticity to things like the bottle dance. An interesting challenge for our production was the dancing. In all the previous Broadway revivals and the original production, the choreography was by the great Jerome Robbins, who also directed the original production. And ours was the first Broadway revival to have new choreography by Hofesh Schecter. So Hofesh had some new ideas for what the music might be that would enhance his work. So we worked very hard to blend new and old, bringing in some other Middle Eastern influences, particularly in the percussion. And one of my favorite moments in our production was the entrance of the groom into the wedding scene, which we really reconceived with Oran Eldor as our dance music arranger. And if you listen to our album, we included it on the album. Usually you don't include so much dance music, but because it was new for our production, we wanted to. And I particularly love that it has a sort of mysterious, almost snake charming kind of influence. And I think portrays the nervousness of the groom to be quite beautifully. So thank you to all of you for your support of the synagogue, and thank you, Mairi, for inviting me to be part of it. I hope you enjoy the rest of tonight's program and enjoy Fiddler on the Roof for many years to come.
Here we are. We're back. I was very grateful to Ted for that. I'm also grateful. I think you guys will have remembered that he did the gala when we brought some fiddler folks up. Ted very kindly played for the Colony Gala. So next, let me find Shecky. I call him Shecky. We call him Shecky. Here he comes, adding spotlight. There you are.
Hey.
Hello, sir.
Hello, everybody.
Jeffrey Schecter is what they call a triple threat with two capital T's. He has had 9 Broadway productions. I looked you up, sir. Did you know that I played for your Pajama Game cast album? That's the only overlapping thing that we
I don't think I knew that. No.
Yeah, well, I knew there had to be something.
Yeah.
It's like all these years and all these shows.
I love it.
I think we never hung out that much at the Fiddler.
We didn't. I was probably always running out to get some matzo ball soup or something. I don't know. It's funny. I mean, I had, trying to think what was going on right about then, just had, my son was just born in September, and my daughter was 3.5 at the time. So it was all about I was away so much doing the show, it was the greatest news to, of course, book the show, but it was like, oh, wow, my wife's now got 2 kids, one that's just born. So it was probably always checking in, running home, taking a nap. I took a lot of naps.
I think our Cantor, Danny, might be able to. Danny, how many children do you have currently under the age of 3? Many.
Under the age of 2. I have 3 under the age of 2, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God bless you.
Thank you very much. But I know what you're talking about, and then some. I really do.
Yeah.
Explains
Yeah.
why we weren't at the bars after the show. Now I understand
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
So tell me how did you come? I mean, you've been on the Broadway. You were Le Fou. Am I saying it right? In
Beauty and the Beast.
And you were in a chorus line. So you've really done these big dancing, singing roles on Broadway consistently.
Yeah.
How did you come to be Adam's son, the rabbi's son, Mendel?
First of all, Adam, bravo. How beautiful to just sit here as an audience member, my camera's off, and just watch him. And I mean, who doesn't love Fiddler on the Roof? And it's funny, before I did this production, I knew of Fiddler on the Roof. It was like one of these things everybody knows about Fiddler on the Roof. It's a good show, but until this production did I really, truly fall in love with this show. This was interesting. I remember reading a dance magazine. My wife gets dance magazine, and on the cover was Schecter, and it was talking about Fiddler on the Roof. And I don't think this has ever happened to me before, but I was looking at the magazine. I'm like, this is gonna be my next Broadway show. It was just one of those moments. And then the irony was, as I'm inquiring about, trying to get an audition, talking to my manager, I'm hearing all these things. All my friends had gone in for these dance auditions. It seemed like it kind of came and went. And I'm like, wait, how did I miss this? This is supposed to be my next show. We have the same last name, Jeffrey Schecter, Schecter. We're supposed to work together. And then out of the blue, literally, I get a call to go in for Mendel, the rabbi's son. I'm like, the rabbi's son? Isn't he like a son? Like, I have some gray now. It was a little bit darker 5 years ago, and I've always looked pretty young, but I was like, I'm concerned I might be a little old in the tooth. I don't play 20 anymore. So, but I said, of course, I'm going to go in for this. And I got a coaching with my coach, because I know Bartlett Sher, and he's all about the acting and honesty and integrity and truth. And I went in there and I sang and I did my scene. And right away, he's like, you're a very good actor. And I was like, you hear that from Bartlett Sher, you're like, all right, I think this is going well. And then it didn't hurt that Kelly O'Hara is a very good friend of mine. We've done a bunch of shows together. And I said, hey, I'm going in for Fiddler on the Roof. Really, if you happen to want to send an email, something, just put a good word in for me. Lo and behold, he mentioned, he's like, you're a good actor. Kelly was right about you. I was like, okay, so this is all kind of working. And it gives me some direction. And you get direction, and traditionally I do very well. I get the direction, I'm very good at it, I deliver it, and more often than not, I book the job because I'm just good at that. If you give me that opportunity. He gave me some direction. I did the scene again, and it was kind of like, woo. It was like, you could just hear crickets, like you just could tell, like, and I was like, was that what you were going for? He's like, don't listen to me. He's like, I totally steered you in the wrong direction. Forget what I said. So he took the blame. I'm like, thank God. Because, whatever he gave me, I was like, okay, I'll try that. And I left there going, oh man, I don't know. I don't know. And then, of course, I ended up booking the part and being like, oh my God, I'm going to be Mendel, the rabbi's son. And then when I started seeing the script and we're divvying out and we're doing all this wonderful work on the script, we spent 2 days just reading through the script before anything, which is unheard of in a musical. And here's another line from Mendel. Here's another line from Mendel. And it's like he was really trying to carve out this little niche for this character that could sometimes maybe be somewhat forgetful. And then the relationship I built with Adam, like, it's like, it really started to be this great standout character. And I got to be this curmudgeonly, angry little man, which I'm a very joyful, friend, right? So that was so much fun to play every night. So
actors always say that. The sweetest actors always say, I love being the baddie. I love being the villain. They have
absolutely. And then the dancing, the dancing, the irony to the dancing is I had never danced for the show, which was so strange. I sang and I read, I got called back, I sang and I read. And I was like, wow. So then I'm invited by the team, like, hey, we want you to come in and work with the other dancers. We're bringing you, a couple of other guys that are dancers, singers. Hofish didn't really know what I could do. See how you move with everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this should be good for me.
I can do that.
And I get in there, and what was kind of startling in the most beautiful way was like, oh, wait a second. These are the dancers he's hired.
Yeah.
These are the dancers. And you know,
Yeah, I actually was on tour with him with the Cedar Lake Dance Company. I toured over a couple of years. We went to Europe and I watched him choreograph because he actually worked music into the piece that we did. So we
Yeah.
improvised the piece, and it was so collaborative. And
well, you know, the kind of dancers he works with are much more of these
classically trained, modern,
classically trained, kind
yeah.
of hip hoppy,
Mhm.
really something I had not seen before. Everything was really moving and
Oh,
jelly.
on that note, I'm going to. I have a little clip from the Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Okay, great.
So, and here you are.
Yep.
Right in front.
And you see it's
Yeah, that's so awesome.
you really let yourself go, you know? So free.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's so unusual. He has such his own character.
It was so unusual, like just the hands. It was always like you're just stirring something. And for me, I'm a traditional Broadway guy. I'm your West Side Story, Guys and Dolls, The Pajama Game, all of that really Gene Kelly masculine jumping, holding. And here it was like this, and we're not hitting stuff. It was like, oh, and I fell in love with it. And being in the room for the week with those dancers, we were going across the floor, and I had never moved like that. And I found it the most freeing and beautiful thing, and fell in love with those dancers. And I rode this fine line of being a singer actor in the show who every pulled into the group to join in and do with. And it was a real treat because I got to be an observer, you know, and as I'm aging more into a character actor, I'm enjoying that. But there's always that young pup in me that's going, I want to dance, I want to dance, I want to do what they're doing, I want to do what they're doing. So and they all the young dancers, they respected me, they knew who I was. So when they saw me doing my thing, they're like, yes, Shecky, get it, Shecky, which was just thrilling and so much fun. And I just absolutely love it.
So tell us, and I know Danny will want to chime in on, because this is the part where connecting the piece to your Jewish history, your Jewish connection to being Jewish, is where I hand it over to Danny because I'm not Jewish. So it's way more appropriate that Danny asks you these questions than me.
I can talk about all things Jewish at any moment, of course. I want to ask you about that, but I do want to quickly just ask you on a technical level, how do you sing and dance at the same time like that? When I'm singing, I'm standing, I'm sitting, I'm standing and leaning on a piano. I'm just not moving very much. And it's so much easier, I find, to get the sound out. Is there anything you do to maintain, to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, truly, it's about building stamina like anything else. If you're used to standing there and singing the way you sing, if we suddenly started to ask you to move, you'd immediately know, like, oh, wait, hold up, where do I breathe? Where do I catch a breath? So, you know, I mean, what I've done in the past is I will be jogging and I will sing through songs while I'm jogging. I'll be doing jumping jacks. I'll go through the choreography. It's all about building stamina and finding where you're going to catch your breath, where you're going to take a quick breath, where maybe you talk with the musical director and be like, this moment here, for me to hold that note, I can give you like 4 counts. I don't think I could do 8 counts because I'm going to swirl around and roll on the ground in 1 second. So it's communicating with your team too. And there's some people that are just make it look even more effortless than I do. Like, I'm definitely one of these people. I'm what you call a patter singer, you know. I'm nervous and upset because this girl I've never met, I get to meet tonight at 8. Like, those are my wheelhouse to do quick, 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 quick. So when I gotta hold a long note, I'm like you. I'm like, where can I find a moment that I could stand it, hold it, and then break out of it?
Yeah.
So, but you know, you and I will get together.
You'll help me out. And anything about being Jewish and experiencing Fiddler and how that maybe affected you Jewishly.
Yeah.
I am also curious because I know it reached back to the in history, and did it connect you with your history at all more than you had been? Did it draw?
You know, the part that it connects to me more than anything else is when you're doing a show like Fiddler on the Roof, and you're doing the scene where you're leaving Anna Tefka, which is the most powerful scene in the show. There's always a moment when you do a show like that, and it happened with Fiddler, where you feel the history just fall into your body. You feel the weight, you feel the responsibility, you feel that history, you feel that sense of just urgency and need to make sure you're telling this story as authentically and as honestly as possible, and to not fake it, and to not giggle and to chuckle and to joke around, because it's too important. um, for me, you know, my growing up, it kind of, unfortunately, as I got older, became less, it got overshadowed by a lot of things. You know, when I was a kid, we went to temple all the time, family of 4, my mom, my dad, my brother, and me. Then as we're getting old, my brother has his bar mitzvah, you know, big blowout, parents get divorced, you know, religion's starting to kind of fall apart a little bit. We're going to temple less, you know, the family, somebody's in Long Island. It kind of disappeared for a little while. Um, but my dad has always been a recurring anchor for me, because I have great memories growing up sitting in temple with him, and just, you know, him bobbing, you know, just little words that pop out. And so when Hanukkah would roll around, when Yom Kippur would roll around, those would be my anchors. Those are the things that I remember the most. And now, as I've gotten older again, religion and doing shows like Fiddler, it makes me go, well, what do I want to do now? I'm a
You have
dad.
your own children now. You're a
I have
dad.
my own children. What do I want to do? What do I want to introduce them to? I'm like, all right, I know the attention span is tough because you're on your iPad right now, but listen, we're going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to teach you a little bit about Passover. It's a quick little thing. We're going to read through it. Then, you know, so I'm trying to make it fun for them and let them find their way too, because we introduce them to all kinds of things. But I realized, hearing the music, Daniel, hearing you at the top of this, I got to share with you really quick. It immediately drops something in, and just emotionally, it just feels beautiful. And in the background, while you were singing, was CNN, and seeing all the people with joy, because I muted it, but I look over and they're screaming and they're happy. And it's been such a tough year for us. To hear you sing so beautifully, to see that image, to be here celebrating a show that means so much to me, it just made me emotional, start to cry. It was really, really beautiful. So that's why I think Judaism keeps coming back to me over and over again, because ultimately it connects me to my emotion and my family. You hear my wife starting to get my son ready for bed. And it's the emotion that I think, and the traditions and the symbolism, that is so just beautiful and keeps me coming back for more.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your
And thank you enough. And thank you enough. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Here's to the seeing you somewhere down on 40-something street.
Amen. Amen.
All right, honey.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you.
I'm going to find Alexandra Silber. Where are you? There she is.
Hi.
Here she comes. Sweet Al Silber. I'm going to start with a video, your video. This is a song, and I know you're going to sing for us a little bit later.
Oh, sure.
We are going over 9 o'clock, but hopefully everybody's having a good time, and we'll just be a few extra minutes. This is a song that was cut from Fiddler, and just tell us quickly how you came to sing this song while I cue it up.
So Hi, I played Seidel in the Broadway revival that we're all talking about.
You done
Seidel,
that first. Sorry.
okay.
This is Alexandra Silber. She played
Hello.
in the Broadway.
I played Seidel in the Broadway revival that we're all talking about, which is Tevye's eldest daughter, the one who gets married to the tailor Marshall Kemsoil. And this song is called Dear Sweet Sewing Machine. For those of you who don't happen to be as familiar with the plot, Mottl's whole zeitgeist is to get Seidel to be able to marry Seidel and to be able to get his sewing machine and bring his tailoring business into the 20th century. And in the second act, they get the sewing machine, and it's actually, if you look at the plot of the play, it's like the last huge joyful moment in the show. And in the original, they had written a song for Mottle and Seidel called Dear Sweet Sewing Machine. The two of them sang together when they finally got it, and it was a huge hit with all of the backers auditions, and everybody would write checks just totally in love with this song. And it only played one performance at the Fisher Theater in Detroit, Michigan, in tryouts in Detroit. Everybody was so in love with this song and these characters. It gets to an audience, the song ends, and nobody applauds. And the next day, it was cut, never to be heard again. And I think people would do it in concert. I think somebody once put it on a album of like songs that were lost out of town. And Adam Cantor, who played Mottle Kemsoil, and I just thought, wouldn't this be such a cool bonus track that really sets apart this this soundtrack of Fiddler on the Roof and this recording from others? And so we kind of got scrappy and organized it, and then we also made a music video, which I think is what you're gonna.
Yep, I'm gonna play the second half of this music video because I know we're.
It's super cute.
Over. But here it goes. It's such a sweet video. Oh wait, I want to make sure the sound. That is good.
You know what you are, dear sweet sewing machine. You'll come to me, our own samovar, pots, pans, blankets and sheets,
cabbage and beets,
corn,
raisins and dates,
plum,
pears,
pitchers and plates,
tables and chairs,
and farther away, a room of our own someday. What if your second hand scratched,
worn,
you're still the best we've ever seen? So welcome, sewing machine, to our home.
Ah!
And how wonderful to see that Sheldon Harnick standing.
No, I think Sheldon was so happy to get it down too. It was.
Oh, I loved watching his face.
I know his little
On
face.
that video.
Totally.
So sweet. Al Silber.
Hi.
You and I have been such close friends since this production, another case of falling into family, and I miss seeing your face. And we bonded backstage when you suddenly spoke in a Scottish accent, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And it was a flawless Scottish accent.
Thank you. Coming from you, that means everything.
It turned out that you went to undergraduate school in Glasgow.
I did, and because of that, sort of my career started in the UK. So I had a lot, and I did Fiddler in the UK as well. So
I still don't get the connection. I know that this production was in London, and then it came here. Is that no? That's not.
no, it was a totally different production. So yeah, we did. It starred the amazing English actor Henry Goodman. For those of you who he's one of the most famous Shylocks that's ever been an actor, and the RSC's recording of Merchant of Venice his Shylock. It's unbelievable. We started rehearsing in 2006 out of town because we were the Christmas show at the Sheffield Crucible Theater, and I know, totally crazy, and it was such a dream experience for me, and I think most of my closest friends in the UK are from that production. In fact, interestingly, as the pandemic shut the world down, I was in the middle of the West End production of Paula Vogel's Indecent, and I was doing it with the woman that played Golda in that production in 2006 to 2008. But that production, we never knew that we were going to transfer to the West End. It was just this little winter job, and it just was a sort of sensation. And it was the first West End revival since the original production in the early 70s, the one from Broadway. And we ran from top to tail. The experience was about 2.5 years long. It was a sort of unbelievable amount of time to sort of play a character. And
you did not play Seidel.
I did not. I played Huddle, and Huddle was, I think, the first character I've ever played, which is Tevye's second oldest daughter, the one who falls in love with Perchik, the socialist, and of course sings the beautiful song "Far from the Home I Love." And for me, in my life, in the arc of my life, not to get deeply intense, but one of the reasons I went to Scotland for my undergrad was because my father passed away when I was 18 after quite a long battle, a 11-year battle with cancer. And I just had this huge, Danny, speaking of like religious or faith-based moments, God moments, had this huge revelation that I had two options in this moment: to either curl up and die myself, I of course mean spiritually, collapse on my dreams, not fulfill the talent and potential and things I wanted to do with my one glorious life, or I could have a huge adventure. And I was like, I'm gonna move to Scotland. I didn't know anyone. I'm sure some follow-up questions are always like, are there Jews in Scotland? And there's like,
there's 5,600.
That's amazing. And hilariously, when I got there and I looked up a synagogue, because it was high holidays, it was back to school. I walked into this synagogue in Glasgow, and the rabbi's face was like, somebody's here! Like, they're so excited. So it was amazing. And for me, though, the reason I even bring that up is because I think I started rehearsing for Huddle about right around the 5-year anniversary of my father passing away, and I had tabled emotionally, grieving and saying goodbye and really facing it, because I felt that I had this responsibility to become myself. I felt that I had a responsibility to sort of fulfill this thing that my family and I, of course, wanted for myself, and I had done it. I had awakened, and there I was in the West End playing this amazing role. And as so many of you know, Huddle's final words are, "Papa, God alone knows when we shall see each other again." And it was a source of extraordinary healing, this goodbye that I was sort of not blessed to have in my waking actual life. Huddle and Fiddler on the Roof gave to me. And as a result, it sort of took on such extraordinary meaning. And I only now see the direct parallel between an 18-year-old that gets on a train to Siberia to fulfill her destiny and become herself, and the 18-year-old that got on a plane to Scotland to do the same thing. And as a little epilogue, I'll say 8 years later, when I played Seidel, I was a totally different human, as we age and evolve. I was no longer a girl. I was a woman who was thinking about relationships and partnership and parenting and my relationship to society and Judaism and, contributing to my community. I was ideally suited to serve Seidel's story at that point. And one of the things I remember thinking about as we were rehearsing the wedding scene,
here in New York?
Here in New York, yeah, was that I don't know if anyone feels this way about grief, but I certainly, this is certainly my experience, that as you come into the acceptance stage, it isn't the moments where I don't feel as many moments of, oh, I wish I could just talk to him in this horribly difficult moment. I feel the pangs in the moments where I'm feeling extraordinary joy and my dad should be there. And to me, it was epitomized by the sort of iconic moment a father would have with her daughter, which is dancing with her father at her wedding. And as Seidel, Fiddler on the Roof gave that to me too. So it feels like it's been this endless bounty of human gifts. And so I'll always be grateful to it on a very deep, personal level.
Tell us about this.
Oh, this book I wrote?
This. Right here.
Well, Thanks for
It is
bringing
a book. It is. Let me just, for people who didn't see, and I'll put the link.
Sure, yes.
I can't figure out how to put the link. I'll try. But it's called. There we go. After Anatevka, by Alexandra Silber.
Yeah.
And you wrote a book. It's a follow-up to Fiddler on the Roof.
It is. It's crazy because I started writing it after I played Huddle in London. I started writing it in 2009, so maybe a year and change after I finished playing Huddle, and I was already on to my next West End show. I was deep into playing Julie Jordan in Carousel, and very sad, but you just had a lot of time. Don't know if many of you know that show, but Julie spends like a lot of time alone preparing to go back on stage and cry again. Like, it's just incredibly lonely track. And I was completely obsessed with what happened to this woman who got on this train, as if like ensuring her destiny would in some way ensure my own security in the world. And the more I researched about what happened to these people that were associated in any way with political prisoners, and of course just displaced Jews that were sent for the very fact that they were Jewish to Siberia to sort of create a population out there. And it was really an economic decision by the czars and the leadership. It just blew my mind, the strength and capacity to endure that so many of these people saw through. And so it's written in 3 acts, if you will. The first act is we really see deep into Huddle's backstory and meet so many of the people that are familiar to us in not only Fiddler on the Roof, but the Sholom Aleichem stories, from Mendel the rabbi's son to Huddle, Perchik, Chava. Not a lot from Tevye, because I felt like Tevye's gotten his day. He's gotten his short stories. This is much more female focused and female centric. And then in the second act, we learn about Perchik and Perchik's backstory, which is very, very absent from both the musical and the Sholom Aleichem stories. I modeled him very much, though, on my father, who was a civil rights attorney and activist, and it was a way to kind of honor him and my parents' relationship. And then in the third act, we sort of meet up with them in the present, and they attempt to flee this prison in Nerchinsk, which incidentally, just like if somebody could be crazy enough to like do You Are There writing, like after all of this intense experience, I was like, I have to go to actual Siberia. Like, I have to go. And so I did go to actual Siberia, and I lived there for 4 months, and I lived in a yurt in Nerchinsk. It was gorgeous.
When did you do this?
This was okay, are you ready for this? This was from August to January of 2009 into 2010. And after that, I moved back to America.
Okay, wow.
I know, it was an amazing, amazing experience. So specific and one of those things where there's a point at which your imagination as a creator just can't sort of uniquely come up with something anymore out of air. You really do have to, one of the things that was so amazing to me was the smell in the air of orange peel and tea and salt was, the orange peel and tea was clearly like winds coming up from the south, from China and Mongolia. Like, I never would have been able to picture that or create that in my mind. The color of the sunrise, which was silver, not any kind of orange or yellow, just incredible things. And of course the people. And I finished the manuscript for After Anatevka actually the summer of 2013, 2 years before I was cast as Tzeitel.
Wow.
And then playing Tzeitel, of course, sort of augmented my perspective, of course. And really, in a lot of ways, there's an epistolary, a letter writing relationship between Huddle and Tzeitel in the book. And I think it's sort of in a way, it's kind of a dialogue between my older and younger selves, kind of communicating about growing up. So it's
This
really
makes me wonder, when you came into this Broadway production and someone tried to direct you in any capacity, did you not have so many preconceived, strongly formulated concepts about...
You stole my question, Mairi. You
Oh,
totally stole my
Danny!
question.
well, you know what? It's interesting because Adam and Shecky both talked about how their experiences with Fiddler, and of course I had done a production of Fiddler before, and I'd written like a novel about these people. One of the things that happened in my audition was it was so bizarre because I kind of was brought in at the very end of the process. I think everyone had been cast but Seidel and maybe a couple of swings. They just like couldn't find somebody. And I came in and I didn't even sing, actually. I don't even think I sang. No, I didn't sing. And I read one of the scenes between Model and Seidel, and then Bart sat me down and basically went, Seidel, who is she?
Oh boy.
And it was like a moment where you could tell like something had intervened, and I just went, I have so much to say about this. And I really spoke from my heart and from my book, really. I mean, and then she galloped out of me. She galloped out of my heart. And I think one of the biggest things I realized, kind of like when you have siblings, when you go, huh, you and I went to the same wedding and had the same parents and had like grew up in the same room. And how could we have such a different perspective on our lives? It was like, oh my gosh, I had so misjudged her and her beautiful relationship with Mottel and the pressure that's put on her. It was a wonderful, kind of humbling experience of like little Al, which was symbolized by Huddle and her like snarkiness. It was all becoming contextualized, and maybe, who knows, maybe there's like a Golda 2045 in my future, but
I believe you may have mentioned that in high school you.
Oh, totally. I actually could totally put the photo. I have a ridiculous photo. I'm going to put it in the chat because it's really special. So I just have to tell you, I gave the world, my sophomore year of high school, I gave the world my Golda. And wait, first of all, like just wait and see the like expression. It's there. Okay.
Oh, it's in this. You can click.
It's in the chat. You can like open it up. Okay, just like look at 15-year-old me, like giving you acting, and then also just like the terrible beard on the Tevye. It's just so bad.
I'm going to share it so that everybody knows.
It's really spectacular. Oh, look, there she is.
Oh, I got the beard on the 17-year-old husband.
There we go. I mean, it's just so, yeah, I'm hoping to revive my performance from 15-year-old in 1998.
Oh, so sweet. You have Danny. Go ahead.
Anything, Danny?
Danny, dig in.
Yeah, just your journey toward Fiddler is stunning. It's just
thank you.
Remarkable. And I watched you sing Kol Nidre in the lead up to this.
Did I do okay?
It was glorious. It was absolutely glorious, and it was so personal. And you spoke about this a little bit, talking about your dad, and I just wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about being in synagogue and what that has meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and my answer is kind of a little cuckoo, I think. I grew up very secular, and did not like, I don't believe in speaking ill of the dead, but like let me just put it this way, I like didn't win the grandparent lottery, and I think a very old world and fear-based attitude toward my mom not being Jewish, and therefore I think a lot of judgment and icky things I felt from them about not being Jewish fully in their minds, and I think always had feelings therefore of, and I think this is an interesting question in the Jewish community about, I think we always fight what it means to be Jewish enough, and I think as I grew up, and especially in my fiddler journeys, realized that I could be Jewish in my deeply personal way and be Jewish enough for myself and for God, like that was a completely personal relationship, as Tevye's relationship is with God in Fiddler, embodied in that beautiful dialogue. And I'll say, through the writing of my book and through my performances in Fiddler, I started to feel a real draw to wanting to know more about it. And last year, almost exactly a year ago, I had an adult bat mitzvah, and it was like everything. I did my Torah portion was Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dreams, because I told my rabbi, I was like, I want to keep it musical theater. Do you know what I'm saying? And so was really proud of my Torah portion, and just created a really personal, very small, incredibly small. I did the mikvah, I did everything. And I do feel like I'm so honored that you said that, Danny, about the Kol Nidre, because as I come to sort of feel like a torchbearer of somebody that sort of came to this later in my adult life, and I feel really into it, but still feel really accessible, etc. it's wonderful to be able to sing things like Kol Nidre, and it was my first time speaking about vows, like when I had made this vow so recently. It was my first high holidays, like as an official Jew, etc. Um and it's been a really amazing and important part of my adult journey. And yeah, I do think I have so many experiences with Fiddler and my book to thank for it.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Would you sing? Would you wrap us up with
Oh, it would be so my honor. So I was thinking, you guys,
yes,
how,
yes.
how do you feel? I was gonna do a little smorgasbord, just very brief. Instead of just singing the song, I thought I would add a little paragraph from After Anatevka before. Would that be good for everybody?
I think that would be delicious.
Okay, I would be super honored to. This is After Anatevka going straight into Far From the Home I Love, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Okay. There was a certain expression that would reveal itself on her father's face whenever he felt a surge of deep paternal feeling. It was an expression of utter adoration. For all Tevye's bluster and grumbling on about how worn down he felt by the women in his life, oh, how he loved his girls. She remembered his laugh, big, bellowing, true. His smell of milk and horses and work. Above all, she remembered the broad expanse of his arms tight around her the very last time they embraced on the frigid train platform in Anatevka, both knowing, though they did not utter it, that they would never see each other again. Until that morning, Hodel had not yet discovered who she truly was. Tevye met his daughter that day on the platform. He met her as she met herself. Then just as quickly, they lost each other forever. A part of her would be on that platform with him for eternity. No, Papa, he did not ask me to go. I want to go. I want to join him in his work. It's the greatest work a man can do, Papa. How can I hope to make you understand why I do what I do? Why I must travel to a distant land, far from the home I love. Once I was happily content to be as I was, where I was, close to the people who are close to me, here in the home I love. Who could see that a man would come who would change the shape of my dreams? Helpless now, I stand with him, watching older dreams grow dim. Oh, what a melancholy choice this is, wanting home, wanting him, closing my heart to every hope but his, leaving the home I love. There where my heart has settled long ago, I must go. I must go. Who could imagine I'd be wandering so far from the home I love? Yet there with my love, I'm
Oh, that was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So nice to be here again.
So beautiful.
So beautiful. So
Thank you for having me so much.
thank you for joining us, really, truly, and it's so good to see your face.
You too.
And I hope I get to see it in person again
Me too.
very soon. very soon. I think we are over time, so I need to wrap this up. But I really want to thank you, Danny, for giving me the opportunity to invite all my friends to join us.
Mary, you rock. Thank you for helping to facilitate this, really for making this happen. We appreciate you so much. Mary Dorman-Phaneuf, thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you. Okay, everybody go enjoy your evening. I'm gonna end it here. But thank you again. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.